Now that we have a list of champions, we can begin to map over them. So we'll pass in our champs and pipe in list.map, which has an anonymous function, takes an anonymous function, which will be our champ. And now we can begin to display our champs. Style Elements has many different layouts to position your elements accordingly. And so there's column, row, and what we'll use is column. So we'll say no style, and this is going to be the list of attributes, which will be empty for now, and then the list of children. So we can bring that down and begin creating our elements. Let's create an image, pass it in, and say no style. This is going to be an empty list of attributes, and then it takes in a record of source. So this is going to be over here. We have our endpoint. We can pass that in right there. And then since our champ record already has this item, we can say champ.image. And then our caption, we can just set it to champ.name. And this takes in multiple items. So now we can create a paragraph, which is also a layout. And then say no style. And this is going to be an empty list of attributes. And then the children, which we'll just display the name for now. And we can save that and begin fixing our errors. So it says it's expecting so this is just for addition, but to append something to the item, it's double plus. And the issue here is because it is expecting just one element, but we're passing in a list of elements. So what we can do here is actually just pipe in a wrapped row, and say no style, and then just pass in an empty list of attributes. Great, there are our champions. And the reason why I said wrapped row is because row, which is also a style elements layout, row will just go on one line, and then a wrapped row will self-explanatory wrap. And that was an accident. Let's begin making this look a little better, because right now it's still not the best. Still needs some work. So let's go over here, and to create just an inline styles, we can say inline style, and it takes in a list of tuple. So we'll say position relative. And now let's position the name actually on the image. So we'll go to our paragraph and say width, and you can see it takes in an attribute right here. So width pixels 120. And then we'll say height as well, 120. So we just get that even, that square looking picture. And then we'll say inline style. This is going to be a list of tuple again. And now we can just put whatever we want. But for now, I'll just say position absolute, top 0. And then we'll give it a line height of 120, because that's what we set the height to, and save that. Make sure we import our element attributes. And there we go. Great, so now the names are on top of the images. So what we can do now is actually create a new style for this. So say champion name, then go to our union type and say champion name, and remove this because we're no longer using that. And go to our style sheet and say champion name. So what we want is 14 pixels. Just keep it nice and small. Then we can say style.color.text. And we can just pass in white, import that. Opacity 0. And let's create a hover to show the actual text. So opacity 1, and then cursor takes in a string, so pointer. Save that. Great, so now it'll display the name on hover. Now just to make things a little nicer, let's actually just create a transition. So transitions, this is going to pass in a record, and this is just as if you're creating a CSS transition that's like this. So it's going to be delay is equals 0. Then the duration is going to be, let's just make it 300 milliseconds. And we actually have to create this time.milliseconds because this is just an int, but this will turn it into a time. And then easing is equal ease. And the last one we'll say props. So this is just like transition dash property. Props is equal to opacity. And we can save that and make sure we import style.transition transitions. And there we go. And make one thing a little nicer is let's go down here and say background dash color and say RGBA 0.8. And that should be a little smoother. There we go. And oh, there we go. So we have all our champions. We have this nice little transition. And actually this is bothering me, so let's center it, which is quite easy. You can just go over here and say center. Import it. That's an style elements attribute. And there we go. It's all centered. And as you see when I refresh, it says loading. So we could change that state, but for now that looks pretty good. And as you notice, it starts as Z. So we can actually change that by going right up here and saying list.reverse. So there we go. Now we start with A.